Welcome to Our Town, a 30-minute podcast brought to you by Best Bark Communications, a small but fierce client-centered marketing company powered by decades of experience and well-established business networks.
This is Andy Ockershausen, and this is Our Town, and we have a delightful guest today, a man who is so respected in the city of Washington. I wish he still had his own joint, Mel. You don't mind me saying that. Mel Krupin is a relic from a time when what made a restaurant big in D.C. wasn't its celebrity chef or its food. It was the big man who ran the joint, the Tummler, who knew where to seat Caspar Weinberger or Jack Kent Cooke or Mo Siegel or who else, and he could kibitz with the customers. Tummler, a person who makes things happen. That's our Mel Krupin. Welcome to Our Town, Mel.
Thank you, Andy. Nice to be here.
How did you end up in Our Town? And we're so delighted that you did. You're from Brooklyn, New York.
I'm born in Brooklyn, New York in 1929. I'm a Depression baby.
So
I
am
was
I.
born on October 14th, and I think Depression started in 19th or the 20th of the month.
You didn't bring the Depression with you, though.
No, I came in 1968.
How did you end up in? Why Washington? Why would you pick Washington?
Well, I at that time I was in the meat business, and there was a fellow that I was working with who played the cards with Duke's partner, who was Max Siskin.
Duke Ziebert.
Duke Ziebert. He was a partner in the Duke Ziebert restaurant. In the early years, Duke was working at Fan and Bill's, and five fellas used to come into Fan and Bill's and play cards in the afternoon, and one of them was Max Siskin. And he was a lawyer for the Democratic National Committee. He was a counsel. In New York, he opened up a stationery store, which today would be Staples. In other words, if you called up, you need pencils and pads, they would deliver. He was on 41st Street and Lexington Avenue.
In Midtown?
In Midtown. Mac Radman was a friend of mine, and he said, I have a friend who's looking for a manager for a restaurant that he's a partner in Washington, D.C. Would you like to go and work there? I said, I would love to go to work there, but I don't think my wife would let me, because I don't think she's going to leave her family and the kids in school, and we should move to Washington. But then I heard the name of the restaurant, and I said, we ate there in 1966. So then I waited a year, and he came back to me, he made the same offer, and I said, let me go try it and see. So I met with Max Siskin, we had a long talk, and he liked me, and he said it's good for me to go to Washington. He said, but you got to go and meet Duke Ziebert. So I said, okay, now how do I get to meet Duke Ziebert? I have to fly down. Well, at that time, Eastern Airlines only charged $15 to fly to Washington. I said, I can go for $15, but then how do I tell my people that I'm working with why I'm going? I was with the Little League for about 6 years. My son played, and then I stayed on. But I got an award from one of the Dodger ball players. I forgot his name.
The Brooklyn Dodgers.
Brooklyn Dodgers. And I said, I'm going to Washington. They're going to give me an award for the Little League. So that's how I got out, and they didn't know where I was going. So I flew to Washington, and then at 6 o'clock I got into the restaurant, and Duke wasn't there yet. And then he came in for dinner, and we sat down and we talked. He looked at me. He wasn't very happy. Duke never wanted a manager. He thought he could run it himself.
Without any help.
But these people had said that the profit margin wasn't there. He wasn't being able to take care of the store by himself. They needed a manager. Well, we talked for a while, and then he said, all right, this is the end of August. He says, why don't you come down a week after Labor Day, which was September 9th. So I went home, and I spoke to Gloria and her mother and her father and my mother, my father, and I decided I'm going to go to Washington, but Gloria's staying home. She stayed home for 10 months so the kids could finish school, and then when June came, she would move to Washington. So I stayed in Washington by myself for 10 months, and then I flew to Washington. When I got off the plane, I felt like one of the little kids in the British, in London, who were during the war, they had a suitcase, and they came they were taking them out.
They shipped them out of town.
They took a taxi, and they said, go to the LaSalle building. That's where the restaurant is. And they gave me an apartment upstairs to live. I remember the
LaSalle building.
And in fact, the owner of the building became a partner with Duke, because when Duke moved from the little restaurant to the big restaurant, they ran out of money. So they went to Milton Ritzenberg and they said, well, you need help. So he took a third of the business, and he gave them some money to build the place over. And then when I walked into Duke, he greeted me, and then I said to me, go inside and see the fellas in the kitchen. He didn't take me. I went by myself. And here I walk in with a pinstripe suit, and the guy, and they're all looking at me. They don't understand what's going on. A few days later, I found out Duke had lost a marker in Las Vegas. And there was an idea that I came from Las Vegas to watch the restaurant. So all of a sudden, I became a member of the mob. And my wife, when she moved down here, and in Connecticut Avenue, they had a few stores, and they had a credit card for all those stores in the area before American Express and all the others.
I know the card. I know the one you mean.
So she went into one. She asked make out an application. They get a card. Put down, where does your husband work? She said, Duke, forget about the application. You got a card. Don't worry about it. So she stayed home for 10 months, and then we moved here, and then we had to find a place to live, and
Gloria ended up loving it. I know, and she's a delightful lady. Happens to have my birthday, and we're both born the same day. And Gloria also became a football fan. She used to go with you to the Redskins.
That's right, because we went with Duke. We took us to the games, and we sat there. But in 1971, Edward Bennett Williams gave me my own season tickets.
Is that right? Your own?
My own season tickets. So then I was able to be a Redskin fan. But things changed later on in my story about the Redskins. But that's how I started with Duke. And
well, that's a great story, and I'm so glad that you told about Gloria. She was a great partner of yours, Mel. And
that's right, she still is.
I would see you all every Sunday. The whole world changed. You can't do that anymore, the Redskins. It's gone.
In December, we'll be married 63 years. And I know her.
She put up with you all
and
these
I know
years.
her 67 years.
Well, your old restaurant, the old Duke's, was on L Street next to the alley in the parking lot. And then, through the grace of God, Duke closed and left you out on the street.
Well, right. He didn't make arrangements for me to have a job. So I had to go and find a business of my own.
And, well, wait a minute. This thing says a deli, but this is the Romanian end.
This is the big restaurant.
Oh, Mel
Krupin's.
Believe me, it was. It was a big restaurant. Paul Young's.
Paul Young's.
Paul and his brother, right?
Right, David. I found a benefactor who came to me and said, do you want to open a restaurant? And I said, I don't have that kind of cash, but he says, I'll help you. So I found out through Milton Kronheim that the young boys wanted to retire and get out of the business. So in order to meet, we had a meet in the Mayflower in Milton Kronheim's apartment because he didn't want the employees to know there was any discussion about selling the restaurant. So we'd eat in Milton's apartment and we make a deal. The only problem I had with the deal was I had to deal with the Bender brothers. And Morty Bender was my nemesis. He was in charge of the contract for the family. And he didn't want to do certain things. At that time, he was out from his brothers. He left the office. He was on his own. So we would walk in the street, and I give him the contract, and he'd read 2 chapters and say, change this, change that, and I go back to the lawyer and change it. And the next morning, we meet on Connecticut Avenue. We walk the other way, and he'd read it, and he said, I don't like this one. I said, you just changed it. Now we go here.
That was Morty, right?
Morty Bender.
Grinder.
But I said to the other 2 brothers, Howard and Steve, I said, look, do I have the lease? He says, you got it. Don't listen to Morty. So one day I said to Morty, this is it. I'm not moving. You want to change one more thing, I'm out of the deal. So in the morning I called up and I got the lease. 6 o'clock in the morning, Morty calls me up and he says, I told you not to go to my brother's. I said, you're not the landlord. I need the lease to build it. So I said, take a walk with your dog and leave me alone. And that's how
he left you alone, left you to Howard.
That's right. And then
he was a delightful man.
In August we signed up to take the building. We brought in the construction people, and they were changing over the place because my friend, my partner, he had grand ideas. He wanted to make the most beautiful restaurant in Washington. And we worked on it, and they had a big board And this was the chairs, this was the curtains, this was the mirrors, this was the
Oh boy!
And I didn't know what it meant, everything up there. The funny thing is, he says to me, the bevel mirrors. So I came on to my wife and I said, "What's a bevel mirror?" He says, "The mirror to the edge. They got a little thing on the edge." Well, I thought a mirror's a mirror. I shave every morning. I don't see no edge. Well, anyway, we built the restaurant, and
a lot of money
for
that restaurant.
I will tell you this. We built the restaurant in 1980. The prime rate was 21%.
Oh, I
thank
remember
God,
it well.
Thank God to the Madison Bank. But I felt...
Blackie Auger kept you in business.
What a way to go into business at 21% prime. But they told the construction people, they said to me, "You got to hurry up. We work 7 days a week." And I said, "We'll give it to you for your birthday." He didn't know my birthday's in October. I said, "Well, you're on. My birthday's October." I opened up October 15th. My birthday was October 14th.
You made it.
I made it. The only bad thing was I had to have a party, an opening party. So I did it for 3 days. And I had this box of envelopes that I had taken from Duke Ziebitz. Was a credit. Nobody had credit cards, but they had signed the tickets.
Yeah, that's right.
So we had that. That was the only.
Signed.
That was the only system that I had that I knew the names and addresses of clients. So we wrote that we gave out invitations to an opening party for 3 days. Now I have this big box, and I'm walking to the mail room on the corner of Connecticut Avenue, and I said, "I got to drop this in. Am I ready?" Because I had the chef and the cooks and everybody's working. And what I did was I took all the help that worked for Duke Ziebitz. They begged me to give them a job when Duke closed, and I promised them I'd give them a job. We were a union shop. We signed with the union. I give them all the health benefits. They can come work for me if they wait from June and come to work for me. All right, everything is settled, and I had this big box, and I said, I feel like Eisenhower. D-Day. I'm opening up the thing, and I'm dropping him in. We're going, June 6th. But the ironic part was Duke came back 3 years later and reopened. And
we want to get into that story. Hold up here. We're going to take a break here on Our Town. We're talking to Mel Krupin, and he's about to start talking about the matzo ball wars.
Oh, yeah.
But not yet. This is Andy Ockershausen. This is Andy Ockershausen talking to Tommy Giacomo and bragging about his restaurant, The Palm.
Hi, I'm Tommy Giacomo. Why don't you come down and see me at The Palm Restaurant? I've been there for 43 years. We have great steaks, great lobsters, great food. Caricatures on the wall. It's just a fun place to eat and drink. We're located at 19th and N, just below DuPont Circle. For reservations, call 202-293-9091. That's 202-293-9091. www.thepalm.com.
This is Andy Ockershausen. We're back on Our Town with one of the pillars of the old Our Town, Mel Krupin. And I remember when you redid that restaurant, you had a waiter named Louie. And Louie was Bud Doggett's favorite. And he had a lot of people come into that restaurant. I also remember when Mr. Cooke got mad about the Washington Federals.
No. Mr. Edward Bennett Williams.
Oh, I thought it was Cooke that got mad.
No. Cooke is the one who stopped me, but Williams is the one who saw it. The Federals started in April, and they had just signed up James.
Of 83.
83.
Right.
And they put up
Craig James.
Red James.
We did the broadcast. I remember it.
And I had a big banner up upstairs when you came down, and it said the Federals, and it was April. People could get tickets and go to the ballpark. They couldn't get to the Redskins. I didn't think any of it. Well, Edward Williams used to come every Saturday morning with 4 or 5 lawyers for lunch every Saturday. And this Saturday he looks up there and he sees this big sign for the Federals. And I wasn't working for lunch, but my brother was. He says, "Where's your brother?" He says, "He's home." He says, "You get your brother, take that flag down." So Morty took it down, and that ended it. I used to take the cake to the Redskins every Thursday with milk and ice cream.
To the park.
I get in the car and I bring the stuff to Redskin Park, and they say, "Oh, wait a minute. We have to see you can't bring it in." I said, "Why?" "Because of the federal flag. Mr. Cooke doesn't want you to bring the ice cream anymore." So I said, "Where's the coach?" "The coach is out on the field, Joe Gibbs." I says, "Can I see the coach?" So anyway, the runner went out and he went to the coach and he says, bring it in. The next week, I got to know I was at the ballpark, and I was standing there smoking my big cigar with John Cooke, the Jack Cooke's son.
Right, Johnny Cake.
He would hide from his father that he was smoking, so he would stand by me so the smoke from my cigar would blind it so his father wouldn't see him smoking. So then all of a sudden he had a fella that worked for him that was his aide, and he came to me and he says, "Give me back your parking pass, and you can't park here anymore." He couldn't take away my tickets, but he took away my parking pass. Years later on, when I was at the deli, in walked Mr. Cooke at night in his nice slim suit, and he sat down. And
Savile Row. He was a British.
He was already sitting up nice, and he says to me, "I won't tell you, Mel. All that incident we had, that wasn't me. That was Edward Bennett Williams. He didn't like that flag." But I'll tell you a story about Jack Kent Cooke. When Duke opened up, and I sent him a nice plant and everything, and Duke said it was a phony, it's a $3 bill. But when Mr. Cooke got up on the television to speak, he said, "I parked my car at Mel Krupin's, and I came over here to eat at Duke's." So the next morning, I sent him a bill for $18 for parking. And then 2 weeks later, I got the check.
He did pay. Oh, my God, Mel.
But then he sent somebody over to the deli, and the man walks in. He said, "Mr. Cooke, he'd like some of that brown bread, and he likes some of those frankfurters." I said, "All right, how much?" "Give him a whole bag." And I gave him everything, and I said, "All right, you owe me $19. "I don't have any money." I said, "What do you mean you don't have any money?" "Mr. Cooke said he'll pay you." "He couldn't give you a few dollars to pick this up?" He says, "No." Well, up until the time he died, I never got paid.
That's not surprising, Mel. But they were good years when you were running your own place, and I recall you had music upstairs.
I had a terrific piano player, Ken Harvey. Everybody
great.
Used to love to come to the bar. I even had Moses. That was the actor Charlton Heston and his wife.
I thought you meant Moses Siegel.
No, Moses Siegel was no. Moses was sitting at the bar. He came in with some people for dinner, and then he came up in the lounge and he stayed. It was 1 o'clock in the morning. So the waitress says, "Here's the check." She looked at it and he says, "Oh, no, I don't pay." So she came to me and she says, "This gentleman doesn't want to pay." I says, "Oh, he's got the tablets. He can do anything he wants. I'll pick up the check."
Oh, Mel, what a great story. And then Duke decided to get back in business.
Well, Duke had the option to return to business because they needed a restaurant in the building for Aaron Fox.
Lerner
needed a building because Aaron Fox took 3 floors. They moved from their other location to the new building, and they had to have a restaurant. Duke had option the first refusal, so he decided to let Teddy Lerner build him a restaurant because he said he needed a place for Randy to work.
His son. Yeah.
So
Randy,
I'm sitting in my office, and this is March, and in walks 6 cooks, and they say to me, "Boss, we have bad news for you." "What's the matter? Something happened in the kitchen?" "No, we're leaving." I said, "Where you going?" "We're going to work for Duke." Duke says he owns us. He started with us, and we belong with him. I said, "You all begged me to give you a job when Duke closed. I gave you a job. I gave you insurance for your families, and you're walking out of me in March. He didn't build the restaurant yet." Randy said he'll take care of us until we open up in the fall.
Wow.
So I said, "All right, goodbye." So I had to go train new people. The chef from Leon Dore and the chef from Tony's came to me, and they said, "If you need any help, I'll help you." And then I had to interview different people and start all over again. And he took 28 employees, including a hat check girl.
Well, when did the war start? After he started when he opened, and who coined the matzo ball war? Who
Mo Siegel.
Mo Siegel.
Mo Siegel, because that's when they left me in March. That's when the war started. Duke ate in my restaurant every day, no check.
Right, he was your guest.
He was my guest. I even put his picture on the Wall of Fame.
I remember that.
And then when after March, that's when the attack started. But he never told me he's reopening. Other people did. Izzy Cohn from Giant Food made me a button. It says, "I know already." And I put it on the lapel of my jacket. And somebody would say to me, "Do you know Duke is opening again?" I already heard.
But Izzy, he was a regular.
Izzy was a regular.
I see Izzy and Pauline Betz-Addy. Remember her? Of course.
They were the bridge club.
Well, you had a lot of characters, of course, but a lot of important people. You knew who to sit who to seat and where to seat him in the restaurant. And what did you do with Siegel? You kept him hidden.
Well, Siegel I had to keep there because he was a PR man. But when Siegel was with Duke, if Duke did something wrong and Siegel would say something, Duke wouldn't talk to him, and Siegel would say, that man's crazy."
Oh, they had cats and dogs fights.
Fought cats and dogs. He had to agree with Duke on everything. But Murray was a nice guy, and I really missed.
Well, he was
like Murray.
He wrote a lot about your restaurant. I know
and
that.
So did his wife.
And
she wrote big when she was with the Washington Star.
Look, I don't want to tell you. I know your problems with Jack Kent Cooke and the Federal. We did the same thing. We signed the Federals to a contract to broadcast their games, and I got a call from Mr. Cooke to come to his place in Virginia. He wanted to see me. So I went out there, and he said he'd give me a glass of wine. I said, "Thank you, Mr. Cooke," and so forth. He said, "Now, let me get to you, dear darling Andrew." That's what I knew it was coming. He said, "This Washington Federals thing, I know it was not your idea because you're not that stupid." He said, "It was Leonard Goldwynson, head of ABC." And I said, "Sorry, Mr. Cooke, it was not Leonard Goldwynson. It was He said, "I tell you, you're not that stupid. Now get out of it." That was his word. And I did. We got out of it. You know how we got out of it? The league folded.
Yeah, that was
I escaped with the rights.
But I thought it was a good idea for the league because it gave people an opportunity to go to a football game
that the
kids couldn't get into Redskin Park.
Well, this is Our Town, and we're talking to Mel Krupin and reminiscing about the good old days. But the good old days are now, and that's what we're going to talk about next on Our Town.
This is Sonny Jurgensen. Got a confession to make. I let my wife drag me to one of those Mike Collins estate planning seminars. Like I don't have enough on my plate with a certain football team. Actually, it wasn't too bad. In fact, we both learned a whole lot about how to protect our kids and grandkids down the road and to take care of ourselves right now. So if you get one of Mike's invitations in the mail, go. I'm glad I did. Get all the information and register online at MikeCollins.com. That's MikeCollins.com.
You're listening to Our Town with Andy Ockershausen. Brought to you by Best Bark Communications.
Talking to the eminent ex-restaurateur, Mel Krupin. And we want to talk to your life after Mel Krupin's. What did you do? Where did you disappear to?
Well, after Mel Krupin closed, I traveled on. And I met somebody who wanted to open a restaurant in Rockville. And there was a Rockville place that Murray Steak had, where now is called Staples, is in that piece of property. So these fellas, Murray Steak's sons were involved, and they wanted to name it Mel Krupin's New York Steakhouse. So I went there for a while, and we stayed there. And then they ran out of money, and they wanted to bring somebody in to be partners with them, and I didn't like the guy that they brought in, so I said, "You got 2 weeks to take down the sign, I'm leaving." And then I met a fella from the Washington Court Hotel who was the manager, and he came in, and I had stuff in the bar at the new place that I gave to put in the bar at the Washington Court Hotel. So then Jackie Presser and the union leaders from the iron workers, they decided I should go to this Washington Court Hotel, which was owned by the union.
Downtown.
The operating on New Jersey Avenue.
Right.
It was owned by the operating engineers of California. They bought it for about $55 million cash. They wanted $75 million, and it was attached to 2 office buildings. It used to be the Sheraton.
Well.
So I came there, and I opened Mel Krupin's Signature Room. And it was a small little restaurant, and they made it through adjustments. But then they had a big room upstairs, and it was an atrium between the office buildings, and they thought it would be nice to make it a banquet hall. But they needed permission to get it. They needed something from the district
Zoning.
So they get built. And they've been trying and trying. They couldn't get it. So one day, as soon as I opened the restaurant, in walks Mrs. Thompson, who was Marion Barry's assistant. And she greets me and she says, "How's everything?" I said, "Everything is fine, but I need a favor. I said, I want to take this room here that we're serving lunch in, and we want to make a ballroom with the atrium, you can have a beautiful scene. She said, what do you need? I need somebody to come over and give me the stuff that we can sign off that I can give the contractor. She says, when do you need it? I says, tomorrow. 2 days later, I had it, and a year later, they start building, and we had a place. So that was my connection.
Well,
but I stayed there 3 years. It was run by a group that only ran hotels that were owned by unions.
Well, you mentioned something that triggers me because Janice and my Janice Ockershausen, who's producing this whole idea, it was her idea. You understand that? We had dinner with Bud and Sherry Doggett at your place in the Washington Court Hotel.
Yeah, with the
We're
opening.
leaving there in the lobby. This TV is on and big story: Marion Barry arrested in a bust. And but we couldn't believe it. We stopped and looked at it. And Bud got on the phone real quick because he called them somebody real quick at the police department. It was true, and that was the story of Marion's demise.
Yeah.
He went to jail.
I stayed there a while, and then they got a manager from Washington State. And then George Arborg said to me, at the Grand Hotel they had a deli, and he wanted to put one in the Washington Court Hotel. So above the bar, we had this large mezzanine. So he said, this is a good space we can build a deli. And I built him a deli, and it was connected to the office building so people could come in and have lunch. This new manager comes in from California, Oregon, or Washington State, wherever he was, and he says, I don't like what you do with this deli. He says, we do this thing different in Oregon. Instead of potato salad and coleslaw, we serve popcorn. I said, popcorn? This is Jewish-style deli. What do you mean popcorn? I don't think he liked Jews. Well, anyway, after a while, if you sat there in the bar, you thought you were in a movie house because it smelled from popcorn. So after a while, he and I didn't get along, and then I said, it's time to get out. While I was at the Washington Court Hotel, I met a man who owned a piece of property on Wisconsin Avenue, 4620 opposite the Dancing Crab.
Ah, yes.
Cy Katzen. Cy Katzen was a builder.
Dr. Katzen.
That's Cy Katzen. Cy Katzen is a dentist. When he started
right
in Northeast Washington or Southeast, wherever he was, he showed me a book. He had 20 clients for a day for $2 a piece, and he cleaned teeth or fixed their teeth. Somebody said to him, there's a little building on the corner of the block, go buy it. And that started his empire. He became a multimillionaire.
Very well.
And now he's got the museum at American University. He gave them $15 million and all the paintings from his home. So Cy built this place, and the first two people that owned it were two Iranians. They called it a New York deli. They didn't do so good.
No.
Cy was down in Florida where we lived in Palm Beach, and he saw 2J's. So he went to 2J's in Florida, and he says, I have this piece of property. I have a deli in it. Why don't you come in and open it up, and we'll make it a 2J's. I'll sign a contract, whatever it is. You send me some people, we'll work on it. 2J's came. They closed the place for 2 weeks. They fixed it up. They put a canopy up with the name 2J's, and they sent over 3 people to work at it. A waitress who became the manager, a baker, and a deli man, and a waiter. So he comes to me, Cy, and he says, can you do me a favor? Can you go over and give me be a consultant, see if I'm doing it right? So I said, sure. So I sat there for a while. I was there a couple of days, and I said to the girl, can I order a sandwich? Yes. I said, like a half a corned beef and a half a pastrami. She says, I'm sorry, we don't make that. I said, okay. Then I said to the deli man, I said, do me a favor, make me a fruit platter. So he took a fruit platter, he took the honeydew, the cantaloupe, and the pineapple, and he cut it in half, cleaned it out, and with the skin, he sliced it, and he put this on a platter, and it looked like Eskimo igloos. So I said to him, why did you leave the skin on? He says, because when you pick it up, you can go choo, and you can bite it. So I said,
bite it like an ear of corn.
Then I said something to the chef, and I said to the chef, we have all this cabbage. We make stuffed cabbage. What do you do with the rest? He says, we throw it out. They said, why don't you make me cabbage soup? He said, I go cabbage. I studied in France with this man, and I know cabbage soup. I'll make you cabbage soup. So he comes back an hour late, 2 hours later, and he says to me, I made the cabbage soup, and it's as gray as your pants. So I said, there's something missing. He says, oh, yeah, I forgot. come back in 10 minutes, I'll fix it. I come back in 10 minutes, he says, come in the kitchen. I look at it. Now it's purple. I says, what did you put in here now? I put in the borscht. I said, it doesn't go with borscht, it goes with tomatoes. So then I looked at his jacket and he said, EX chef. Instead of the executive chef, it only had the E and the X. I said, that's why you only put borscht in the soup.
Mel, that was a great, great deli. Everybody in Northwest loved it, in Upper Northwest, and I know we did some remotes there, and Janice and I would go there frequently. It was a great breakfast place, in addition to dinner.
We did Hardin and Weaver's farewell dinner, but I'll tell you this. I was the only restaurant in Washington deli, so I got 100 best in the Washingtonian magazine as a deli. 2 stars by my friend...
Who is it? Richmond?
No, Schaffner, Robert Schaffner.
Yeah.
Somebody once used to ask the fellas that owned the Prime Rib, want to know if I lived with Schaffner, because they never got mentioned and I did.
Well, you had the real Jewish deli. We knew that.
Well, when I was at Krupin's, and I was the food critic from the New York Times came to see me, and her critique was Judo-American. Because matzah balls and chicken in a pot and chopped liver, it was a Judo-American restaurant.
Well, Mel, you're just a legend. And then I followed you then after you left the deli with your brother, a delightful man, great guy. But then you were doing a stand-up at a place called Atman's. Janice and I came out to see you. That was much later. Well, then you went down to McCormick and Schmick.
Well, after I sold the deli and when I sold the deli, I came home and I said, I'm retiring. Because then I reached 70 years, and I said, I want to walk out, not be carried out. But I stayed home about a month, and I couldn't take it anymore. So I went ahead and I looked up in the newspaper restaurant managers, and all they gave me was send a resume to this number. I didn't know the name of the restaurant. It could have been Burger King, could have been Marriott. McCormick and Schmick had an ad for a maitre d' for lunch. So I got all dressed up with a suit and tie, and I came down to McCormick and Schmick on K Street and 17th. And I walked in about 2 o'clock after lunch, and I sat there, and the young lady says to me, I'm interested in the ad. She handed me an application. I never made an application in 35 years. So I made out the application, and then while I finished it, she says, the district manager is sitting over there. She'd like to see you. So I brought over the application. I sent down what her name was, Connie Collins. She was the district manager. She looks at it and she says, oh, Mel Krupin. Oh, your father was a very famous restaurateur. I said, yeah, that's he was. But I have to tell you something. I am Mel Krupin. So she says, yeah, isn't that nice? She says, don't worry about it. You can come in tomorrow. So anyway, I came in the next day dressed up, ready to go to work at 9 o'clock. And the young lady is standing there, and she says, welcome to McCormick and Schmick. I know you're going to be the maitre d'. She says, can you do me a favor? I said, what would you like? Can you clean the windows on the revolving doors? I said, that's not my contract.
Not my job description.
I stayed there for 10 years.
I know that, Mel. And you were an institution back downtown in our town.
Gloria got hurt. She slipped and broke her neck.
Oh, my.
And then we had to take care. So I said, it's time to get out.
And we miss you downtown, but you didn't leave our town, which I'm proud of you for.
I miss all the places I was downtown, and I miss all the people, especially like my good friend Chuck Conconi and all the people that I knew. And... people that who was just here, Wendy Rieger, who did my closing. She did a good story.
That's why we called you the Tummler. You were the Tummler. Mel, I just can't tell you how much I appreciate you and what you did for our town and all the things that we did at your restaurants. Wherever you were, we showed up, whether it was WMAL or my guys, but you were a great friend, and we appreciate you so much. And give my best and my love to Gloria. As I told you, we share the same birthday.
I know. Happy birthday to Gloria. Happy birthday to Andy O.
She's a wonderful lady.
I make out 2 cards.
This has been Our Town. We've had a wonderful, wonderful conversation with Mel Krupin, and I hope he doesn't leave Our Town.
You've been listening to Our Town Season 1 with your host, Andy Ockershausen. New Our Town podcast episodes are released each Tuesday and Thursday. We welcome your comments and suggestions on how you like the show or who you'd like to hear from next. Catch us on Facebook at Our Town DC or visit our website at OurTownDC.com. Our special thanks to WMAL Radio in Washington, D.C. for hosting our podcasts.